Assalamu alaikum. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to create a really cool UI to let your users join your newsletter. So of course, you don't have to force your users to join the newsletter. So that's why we're giving this high user experience UI where the user can choose between either to join the newsletter or maybe later. Using animations, we can kind of enforce them to join with the following animation. So as soon as I hover, I can either join, but if I choose maybe later, as you see, maybe later button disappears with a small hint text appearance. Just join, you will not regret. So in today's video, we're going to create this UI. It's going to be very simple using Framer Motion. Let's get started. All right, so first let's take a look at our component. So we have a very simple and straightforward code, a newsletter CTA component with a simple container and a bunch of elements inside. So we have the primary button, which is the join newsletter button, and the not interested button with a maybe later label, and the hint text, which we have over here. So now what we're going to do is we will use Framer Motion and animate presence component to animate all those three elements. We can hide maybe later button as soon as we hover and make the hint text appears. And as soon as we hover off, everything should get to the initial state. Let's get started. All right, let's focus first on the maybe later button and add the animation to this part. So the first thing that we should do here is to turn this button into a motion button. And if we want to use motion, what we're going to do, yes, you got it right. We need to import motion and animate presence from the Framer Motion package. So whenever we want to have an exit animation, we definitely need animate presence. So let's just wrap our component here or motion button in with an animate presence wrapper. Perfect. And whenever we want to use animate presence, we need to conditionally render what is inside. So this button should be only appearing with a condition. In our case, only when we hovering. So what we can do is we can create a new state using useState from React, and it's going to be very simple. Let's call it, for example, is hovered, and set is hovered, and it's going to be initialized with false, and the type is going to be Boolean. Perfect. So we want this button to appear only if we're not hovering. So not hovered and then you can show this button. Perfect. Now if we look closely to this animation, we're going to notice that we have a small bike at the end of the exit state. And that is because the padding. So Framer does not basically animate any paddings. So if we check here, we said on the exit, it's a weight of 0, but we still have a small padding. That is the exact problem for this animation bug. Once we remove the padding, if we check again, you can notice that we have a smooth and clean animation. In addition to the padding, you can see that we still have a small space here, and that is because the margin right on the primary button. So how we can fix this? It's very simple. We can conditionally add the margin right to the primary button. So if we're hovering, we remove the margin right. If we're not hovering, we can add the margin right. So let's do this. I'm using Tailwind Merge for this one. You can just write simple conditions directly on your class. But for this one, just to keep the code clean, I'm using Tailwind Merge. So what we can do is we can add Tailwind Merge function in here, add a comma here, and then let's write our conditions. So if it's hovered, let's set the margin right to 0. If it's not, let's set the margin right to 2. If we go back now to our component, and as you can see now, it's working very smoothly and simple. Perfect. Last thing we want to add here is to animate this hint text. What we can do is the exact same thing. Basically, let's try to animate the p tag in here. So first thing, let's turn this p tag into a motion tag, and let's try to add the states directly. So we're going to have an initial state, an animate state, same, and an exit state. So initially we want an opacity of 0, a Y positioning of 5, and let's add a small filter for blur. On the animate we want opacity of 1, a Y position of 0, and let's remove the blur. And let's bring back everything on the exit. When do you want all this to appear? Only if we hovering. So is hovered and add. And as we said, whenever we're using an exit animation in our component, we need to wrap everything in animate presence. Perfect. Just to make things consistent, let's add an H of 10 pixels to keep the element consistent and not moving on the animations, plus a simple margin top of 2. Now let's check our component again. And as you can see, everything works fine with the blur effect and the maybe later button animation. All right, perfect. So as you can see, this is how we can use Framer Motion to help us convince our visitors and users to join our newsletters with funny and smooth animations. As usual, you can head over to simplyui.io where we already added our component around here. So if you click on it, you can see a simple preview here. You can copy the code directly and feel free to use it. And also we have a small article where we explaining how we built this component. Perfect. Hope you like it. Let me know what you think in the comment section and see you in the next one. Peace.